Hello, everyone, and welcome and thanks for joining us on the WealthTech Insider. I'm Danni Le Grande, and I'm really excited to be joined by one of our very own clients today, Greg Barter from Allied Wealth. Greg is the director and principal of Allied Wealth, and they are an independent high-touch boutique advice business. And in this episode, we're going to have a chat to Greg about the technology transformation that the business has been through and is still going through. So, hey, Greg, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here. Hopefully I can help other people go through this process.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So just to give a little bit of context, you came to us last year wanting to get advice around how you should build your technology to support your growing business there at Allied Wealth. What were some of the initial sort of challenges and what were the reasons that you came to us to get that technology help? What was going on?
Well, we were moving from what was a one principal business to a business which was moving to multiple advisors. And what was right for a business which had one principal advisor wasn't necessarily right for multiple advisors. So we thought it was timely for us to review our tech stack. We ended up with you guys because I tried to do it myself to start with, and rapidly found we didn't have the experience we thought was necessary to get a decent solution. So then when we came across you guys, we thought, as well as engaging you guys because you've got the experience in the space to try and provide a solution for it.
And did you find maybe, because I think from memory at the time, you'd had a few demos and, you had a lot of stuff, a lot of technology to sort of consider in that process. And it was maybe a little bit confusing to sort of make those decisions around what was going to work best for the business.
Yeah, so we had criteria which we wanted to see for our tech. But the initial problems we had, if you talk to salespeople, they're all going to say they can do it. And so we thought was an advantage is an organisation who was not necessarily trying to sell us something, but also trying to give us a solution. And so that's what we thought it was a better idea to give us those eyes to have a look at for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And I just want to sort of talk about the, the key components and the overview of the technology strategy and sort of how we came to the solutions and the design, I guess, for you guys. So you had quite a few things sitting in your tech stack, and it wasn't really consolidated and well integrated. And some of those technologies that you were using were sort of could have served the same kind of purpose when it came to advice production and CRM and that sort of thing. So you had obviously Microsoft, as everybody does. You had Salesforce, so you had a managed version of Salesforce. You had a managed Xplan site, Lonsec, Morningstar. You were also using File Cloud, which was integrating back into Salesforce, which was obviously working for you at the time, and obviously a combination of the investment platforms as well. So, with that, you were sort of doing, I guess, the problems statement there was you were doing a lot of double keying across those technologies. There wasn't sort of a really centralized data model that you were working with.
That's a fair statement because I think the technology and what we were using was good individually, but collectively that's where we started to have problems. And so what we wanted to do is try and look at what our IT support was to make it more cohesive as opposed to the individual pieces of tech which we're using. And everything comes with a compromise. So I guess you could argue each of the individual standalone, they might have been the best in their breed for what they were doing, but they weren't connected as well. So there is an advantage there is an acceptance if you want to aggregate and have something which works together across the entire stack. And you'll need to make compromises in some areas in order to get the finality with the software.
Yeah, good point. And I think just thinking back to, when I was sort of looking at how we were going to formulate your tech stack, you were really, one of your advisors in particular was really using XTools Plus quite well, and really thought that XTools Plus was, the premium cash flow modeling solution, which is, probably pretty accurate. So the other thing that we sort of came across was that you wanted to have a bit more of a simplified way of using a CRM, and the technology that you wanted needed to be not really complex. You didn't really have super high customizational needs in the business, we found as well. So there were sort of lots of things, lots of moving parts that we needed to take into consideration to sort of make sure we came up with something that was going to obviously again be well integrated, reasonably simple to use, but also support you guys because obviously you're a growing business, and you know, you need that technology support, onboarding support, all that sort of stuff. So what did we come up with? We came up with, sorry, you go.
Just to make a point though, the fact that you took the time to listen to what our requirements were, and one of the main requirements was we want to invest now in changing our IT stack so that it can grow with us, because what we were using at the time was limited. So with the automation piece, one of the key things was the new client process needed to be pretty well automated, but the ongoing client process we could be a little bit more liberal with, because the overall number of clients we were dealing with at the time was relatively low.
Yeah, good point about the onboarding, and yeah, we certainly did find that, and this is probably true of quite a lot of advice businesses, and certainly a lot of our clients, is that manual fact find piece. So they're collecting data, emailing really the fact finds out, getting the clients to manually complete those fact finds, sending them back, and then somebody from the admin team is entering that data back into potential, well, in your case back then it was multiple areas to sort of get that data that you needed through the onboarding process. So, you know, that was really taking your team quite a bit of time. So we wanted to hit that. We thought that was quite a big pain point, and we could find a solution potentially to sort of relieve a lot of that, the time taken for the manual data entry with the fact finding process. So what we did, and we'll just sort of try and break it down here. We actually chose AdvisorLogic for you guys. And the reason that we looked at AdvisorLogic was, well, obviously simplicity, a more simplified end-to-end advice system to use. We knew that it could integrate. It had a lot of integration capability with Zapier. So if I just we look back at the fact-finding piece and the direction we went there, we actually chose Typeform, which is a simplified way of collecting that client data. But that Typeform, we chose that as your sort of fact-finding. So, and, you know, Typeform does have that integration back into AdvisorLogic. So where you're collecting that client data on the Typeform in that fact-finding process, we're getting that data pushed into AdvisorLogic. So tick in the onboarding process through into advice production. And then we obviously understood the research tools in AdvisorLogic. So RiskLogic and the cash flow modeling tool actually ended up, I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, did actually end up being okay for you guys. I think initially we'd sort of put in the tech roadmap that you could keep X Tools Plus and keep a license going if you really were embedded into that system. So that was sort of an option that we put forward to you. But talk us through the tools, I guess, in AdvisorLogic, and are you using them all?
Yeah, one of the things which is also worth pointing out is one of the requirements we asked for is good ongoing support, because we weren't getting it in our view from Xplan at the time. And given that we were a relatively small but growing business, we needed whoever we were choosing to be attentive, which turned out which is one of the considerations for AdvisorLogic. I think another one of your key deductions was we had to integrate as much as possible. So in essence, the recommendation was maximizing use of what you already had with Microsoft suite of stuff, plus everything you can use through AdvisorLogic, because it has that connection with Morningstar and the risk profiling. And so ultimately, with the add-on with Typeform and the connection with Zapier, it kind of meant we really only had two core systems we needed to deal with, which got rid of that getting rich of multiple systems and trying to get them all to work together. I guess the point you made about the modeling is valid. in a different way. And so you're right. One of the principal director or the founding director was really, with the its tools and then what it can do. And there's no doubt that that's, I guess, what I was referring to about everything's organized, and stack. The modeling within AdvisorLogic is, in my view, adequate. And it's interesting where we identify that as being one of the major potential run points, in so much that you said keep hold of X plan just in case you want to keep using that system. But ultimately, what happens is what you think is going to be the problem isn't the problem. So I would say that I don't think the cash flow modeling within AdvisorLogic is an issue at all. I think it's adequate for what we need for clients. Surprisingly, comes also with the connection or the linking up of other systems. So while Typeform is a really good piece of software, and while Morningstar is built to get information in through that Zapier connection, it wasn't as easy as what I originally had thought it would be. And so, which advertisers being an advantage, surprisingly, has been the area which we've had the most trouble with. But that's not to say that it's bad. It's just that you are generally surprised what you expect to be a problem isn't generally the hardest run point.
When you talk about the issues with that, what did you have to deal with? What was happening with that integration?
I think it's just a case of lining up the data that can come in through Typeform to what fields AdvisorLogic will accept. And so, you can sell it. If you get one single piece of information, the whole process will fail. But this goes back to the other thing which we noted as being a requirement, which is the ongoing support. And the way that we solved it wasn't to try and solve it ourselves. We actually went back to AdvisorLogic, and they spent a lot of time making sure that integration worked. So above all things, the promise that AdvisorLogic would be supportive has proven to be true, and we needed it more than we realised. And they were very on onboarding process, and they took us through a lot of training in the early stages. Now, I guess one of the shortcomings of us is you can only remember so much training. So whatever like when we get a new phone, whatever you learn in the first 2 days, you use all the time. Capabilities it's got. So I think what we need to do now is go back and try and exploit more of what that platform can do. There's areas where it's absolutely excellent. The onboarding process is a lot smoother. Now that we've got that connection with the initial client data coming in through Typeform, the fact that the risk profiling is integrated and it lines up with our risk profiling, and the advice processing of data gathering going into AdvisorLogic is pretty good. So we found that to be really good. What we have found, and surprisingly, is a problem, and we've spoken, Danni, about this. It's probably across the board. Is their reporting and their client portal function is there, but it's not as adequate as what you'd hope it would be. So that's an area where I think they are still developing, but it comes as a surprise to me that it's not already great out of the box, because you would have thought that's one of the things you'd really need to get sorted out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was going to say, with AdvisorLogic, are you using the workflow? Are you managing workflow on AdvisorLogic yet?
No. So we've looked at it, and so we're installed at the point where we need to change the standard workflows to what we want. So that's a project which we'll probably turn to the second half of this year. What we have managed to do is transfer a lot of the data across, including legacy data from Xplan to AdvisorLogic, all the file notes and all the information which we had with the previous clients, existing clients, I should say, has come across quite well. We managed to do the data feeds from the custodial services which will provide it into AdvisorLogic, and the new client process and the review process is pretty well set up. But the workflows we probably haven't exploited as much as we could. But again, there's probably another 50% of the platform which we haven't used to its fullest yet. The one thing which is true to label what you offered to us was all the systems we're using has to be usable by non-tech savvy people such as myself. And so far, even Typeform you can teach yourself in an afternoon. Zapier is a bit, definitely the interface with AdvisorLogic, someone can turn it on and be reasonably competent within the space of probably a week. So I think definitely something which is good from our point of view, because obviously we're a relatively boutique business with not a lot of back office to help that sort of stuff out. So that's definitely been a big help.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And how have you, one of the things that we sort of experience and work with our clients is the whole change management piece. So moving from the existing technology that you're used to using every day, even though it might be painful, you still, you have your ways of using it, and shifting into that new way. How has the team sort of coped and managed with that change? Have you found that sort of something that you needed to navigate outside of just, purely getting logins and training into the tech?
I think, I guess everyone was eager for the change anyway. So the desire for change is already there. And I guess that might be the first roadblock you'll get with other organisations if people are quite set in their ways of using software. So the desire was there. The change management, we needed to keep track of transferring and keep pushing. We had we gave ourselves a quarter to do the transition from the old systems to the new system. So we had to stay focused on doing that. The shortcoming in the change management piece is finding time to train and learn the new tech. I reckon that's probably the area where we were least committed to. And so I think that's in part where AdvisorLogic were offering us training every week to learn the system, but obviously everything else gets in the way. So I found that the commitment to do the training onto the new system probably was not up to speed. And so that then leads into the fact that we're not using the technology as much as we could. So maybe we just need to use it for a little bit and then go back and do training. And so that way you're you're breaking through the next level of I guess, conversant nature of using the system.
It was obviously a priority for you to come to us and get that assistance and support and help and to where to next. But then you're right. I think actually prioritizing that change and phasing it into the business is such a big thing, because you're all advisors at the end of the day. You've got clients to see, and that's your priority. So it's difficult to kind of, I guess, prioritize that tech change. But I think, if you can't, like you're sort of alluding to, I think there is slot in an hour a week or half an hour a week or whatever it might be in a really structured way. It's probably going to lead to a quicker implementation of those technologies, people getting used to it, all that sort of thing.
And so if the podcast, the view is for people considering a tech change and what to think about, the first one is get someone to do a third-party review, such as yourselves, to have a look and give you options which there are. The second part is with the implementation, commit to a timeline and make it difficult to achieve, and make sure you're cutting off all the other systems so you can't keep the complacency of being set in your ways. But the thing which we didn't do well is make sure you take the time to do the training on the new system and make it mandatory for everybody, because otherwise people will start to get frustrated because they won't know how to use the system, but ultimately it's their own fault if they haven't given it time.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys are recruiting into the business, and you've had some new team members start since we embarked on this project together. How have they come into the business? Has it been sort of an easy transition for them, easy for you to show them how the business is run using technology? Any hiccups along the way there?
Yeah, I guess so we've had 2 new advisors join since we transferred to the new system, both experienced advisors, but neither of them had actually used AdvisorLogic before. Because we've recently gone through the process ourselves, we're able to, and AdvisorLogic has a pretty good sort of teach yourself factor to it. So we're able to say, do these online courses straight away. And because I guess with trying to concentrate on 2 systems, Microsoft and AdvisorLogic, made it a lot easier to explain to them how our technology works. So as opposed to trying to teach them how to use like a number of different software packages. So that's probably made the onboarding easier. But on top of that, one of the reasons why we wanted to consolidate and review was, as I said before, to scale up. And so that's, we weren't anticipating that new advisors would come along as quickly as they have, but it's handy to have already addressed the tech and set it for growth, because now as these advisors are coming on, it's actually a lot easier to train them and bring them on board than what it would have been under the old system.
Yeah, great. That's a big tick in the box. I think back in the olden days, 12 months ago, or close to 12 months ago, when we first started talking, AI wasn't really a thing. I don't want to turn this into an AI discussion, but it's being talked about so much. I'll throw it into the mix here. One of the things that we didn't even cross this, but talk about this in your tech roadmap. It wasn't even on the radar really to talk about things like Copilot and the other AI tools that are out there. But I think one of the things we're sort of finding as we're working through is that really, again, and we did talk to you guys about this, sort of working more into that, getting more into that Microsoft ecosystem, using those tools within Microsoft outside of, your core advice tech that you're using is, probably a really good way to go. And that sort of, I guess, rings true when we're looking at things like Copilot that's available to Microsoft users now. The more that you are in that Microsoft ecosystem, so saving your documents into SharePoint, for example, and using Teams to record your meetings, that sort of thing, the more efficiencies you're probably going to find in your day-to-day. Have you guys had a double in Copilot or any other AI tools? Is it on your radar at all?
Not yet. I did notice Typeform also has the offering interactive sort of video forms, which we thought was kind of interesting, but no one's keen enough to do video to do it. So that where we could go with the technology and is really interesting. We haven't used any AI style systems at all so far, but we sort of definitely are open to the idea of trying to integrate technology more so into the business to make everything more streamlined. Because at the end of the day, while financial advice is a person business, 90% of the time you're doing administration. So if there's any way you can reduce that admin burden, particularly, as I said before, we don't have a very big back office. So it really boils down to the advisors are doing their own admin. So the more we can use technology to reduce the time we're spending on admin and synchronize and speed processes up, the more time we can be in front of clients or talking to new clients. So we're definitely interested in that, but it's probably something we'll need to consider once we've I guess, digested and transfer across to the new systems now.
That's right. Baby steps, which is what we told you to do. Let's not jump ahead just yet.
Yep.
Excellent. Any other the tips that you have for advisors looking on embarking on a technology journey?
I think it's an investment. You've got to do it early. We had a clear line in the sand from the point of view of moving from a one person to at the time 3 and now 5 advisor business. So do it early because you don't want to try and change things. The larger the business, the harder or the less more momentum there is not to change. So my view is do it early. And I think the other important part about it is you've got to go back and not only look and try and engage in more of the software you've already got, but go out there and don't be set in your ways. And so I'd say you should review it at least in part every 2 years, because right now there's so much new technology coming along. I think you should always be open to change. One of the weirdest parts is there's got to be, I just think there's got to be more development along the way. So what we haven't seen so far with any real effect is online fact finds to clients, and that client portal function really has to, I think that's an area which has definitely got some potential for growth. The integration with the custodial service you're using and the software you're using is pretty important, because we've had a problem with one isn't integrating all that well, and ultimately that's a major problem. So you should probably make sure you do all your background research done properly before you sort of embark on the process as well.
Yeah, that's excellent tips. I think you're right too. I think that we agree. It's really tricky to find a technology vendor that is a silver bullet, because all advice businesses have different needs and different ways that they view their jobs to be done when it comes to the advice journey. They may have had bad experiences in the past with certain technologies, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of sort of moving parts, as you're alluding to here, in when you're coming to making those technology choices and decisions for a firm. So we too would love to see the vendors sort of focus on that client portal technology. We don't have a lot of options in market here in Australia for client portals, and certainly agree. It's going to tick that cybersecurity box, isn't it? And I think we're going to get to a point where it's going to be tricky for us to continue emailing advice documents and sensitive things to our clients. We're really good at doing that in advice businesses, sending out that personal information. So we sort of need to wind back and stop doing that. But again, we need to have some good solid options out there to help us. So fully agree. And the integration piece as well. You should be able to pick and choose what you want to use when it comes to your technology choices, and have that streamlined data flow going. So fully agree with everything you're saying there. Excellent. All right. Thank you, Greg, so much for joining us on another episode of the WealthTech Insider. If you haven't already, you can go and complete our technology health check at www.finuragroup.com to get an idea of how your business is tracking with your technology and where you could potentially make some improvements with your tech stack. Thanks again, Greg, for joining us.
Pleasure.